The war room aboard the flagship was crowded. Human officers stood shoulder to shoulder with galactic military leaders, all of them studying the massive holographic display that showed the swarm's territory. Red zones covered hundreds of systems, spreading like a disease across the star map. Commander Jiwan stood at the head of the table, with Fleet Marshal Krenix to her right. The massive alien warrior had initially refused to work with humans, but 3 weeks of joint operations had changed his mind. He had watched human ships deliberately take hits meant for his vessels. He had seen human soldiers risk everything to save alien civilians. Respect had been earned the hard way. The swarm's growth pattern indicates a central coordination point, Dr. Sunhee explained. She was the fleet's chief xenobiologist, a thin woman with sharp eyes and brilliant mind. We've analyzed tissue samples from 17 different encounters. Every swarm creature carries identical genetic markers, suggesting they're all spawned from a single source. The prime mind, Jiwan said. Exactly. The prime mind is the swarm's brain. Kill it, and the entire hive network collapses. Krenix's armored plates rattled in what might have been laughter. We've known this for months. The problem is finding it. The swarm protects their prime mind with billions of creatures. Every probe we send is destroyed before it gets close. Then we don't send probes, Captain Hyunwoo said. He manipulated the display, zooming in on a massive structure deep in swarm territory. We send people. The room fell silent. What Hyunwoo was suggesting was suicide. The target system contained 3 swarm hive worlds and an estimated 50 billion active creatures. You're insane, a galactic admiral said flatly. No, Dr. Sunhee said quietly. He's right. I've developed a pathogen that disrupts the swarm's neural network. But it only works on the prime mind's unique biology. We need to deliver it directly. She displayed her research. Microscopic organisms designed to attack the specific proteins that allowed the prime mind to coordinate its hive. Once infected, the prime mind would lose control of its billions of creatures. They would become nothing more than mindless animals, easy to destroy or simply leave to die. A suicide mission, Krenix said, but there was respect in his voice. Who leads it? I do, said Ensign Junho. Every eye in the room turned to the young pilot. He stood straight despite his age, despite the fear clearly visible in his eyes. I'm the best pilot in the fleet. Everyone says so. If anyone can get a team through that defense network, it's me. Absolutely not, Jiwan said immediately. You're 23 years old. I'm not sending a kid on a death mission. With respect, Commander, you don't get to decide, Junho replied. I volunteer. The law says volunteers can't be refused for age if they meet competency standards. I meet them. Jiwan wanted to argue, but she knew he was right. Unyo had become legendary among both human and alien forces. His reflexes were inhuman even by human standards. He could fly a ship through debris fields that should have killed him a dozen times over. I'll go with him, Hyunwoo said. As mission commander. And I'll go, Dr. Sunhee added. Someone needs to deploy the pathogen correctly. More voices spoke up. Human and alien volunteers both, forming a strike team of 12. Soldiers who had fought together, bled together, and now would die together if necessary. Jiwan looked at her people and felt her heart break and swell with pride at the same time. Then we do this right. Full fleet support. We'll create the biggest diversion in military history. Every ship, every weapon, everything we have focuses on drawing the swarm away from that strike team. Over the next week, preparations consumed everyone. The pathogen was loaded into armored canisters. Ships were modified for speed over survival. Weapons were tested and retested, and the strike team trained until they moved like one organism, anticipating each other's actions with practiced ease. The night before the mission, Unyo sat alone in the observation deck watching the stars stream by. Commander Jiwan found him there, can't sleep? She asked, sitting beside him. Thinking about home, he said. I grew up on New Terra. Never saw a real war until 3 months ago. Now I'm about to fly into the worst hell the galaxy has ever seen. You don't have to do this, Jiwan said softly. I can order you to stand down. Your talent is too valuable to throw away. Junho smiled. That's exactly why I have to go. Because I can make a difference. Because all those people counting on us deserve my best effort. He looked at her. You taught us that. You came back to save people who tried to destroy your ancestors. How can I do less? Jiwan had no answer for that. The day of the mission arrived. The combined human and galactic fleet, over 300 ships, jumped into the target system. Immediately, the swarm responded. Hive ships the size of moons moved to intercept. Billions of creatures launched into space, forming clouds of living death. The fleet opened fire. Every weapon blazed at once, turning space into a storm of light and fury. The swarm took the bait, pouring its forces toward the main fleet, and in the chaos, 12 small ships slipped through the gaps. Yunho led them in a winding path through the battlefield, dodging fire from both sides. His fingers danced across the controls, making his ship perform maneuvers that should have been impossible. Behind him, the other 11 ships matched his every move. Incoming, someone shouted. A swarm of creatures detached from the main force, racing toward the strike team. Stay tight, Junho ordered. His voice was calm, steady. I see them. The strike team dove toward a massive asteroid field. The swarm creatures followed. At the last second, Junho pulled up, skimming along the surface of an asteroid so close that his ship's shields sparked. The other ships followed. The swarm creatures, unable to match the maneuver, crashed into the asteroids by the hundreds. 2 ships lost, Hyunwoo reported grimly. 9 remain. They pushed deeper into swarm territory. Every kilometer brought fiercer resistance. Ships fell one by one, their crews dying to protect the mission. 7 ships, 5 ships, 3. Finally, they reached the center, a massive organic structure that pulsed with sickly light. The Prime Mind's chamber. This is it, Dr. Sunhee said. Land me as close as you can. Junho brought his ship down in a screaming dive, landing gear extending at the last moment. The hull scraped against organic tissue, tearing through it. Hyunwoo and Dr. Sunhee ran for the airlock along with 4 soldiers from the other surviving ships. I'll keep the ship ready, Junho said. Come back alive. Inside the Prime Mind's chamber, the air was thick with spores and moisture. The walls pulsed with a heartbeat that shook the ground. At the center, something massive and terrible waited. The Prime Mind was beautiful in a horrible way. A brain the size of a building, covered in glowing neural pathways. Around it, swarm creatures stood in perfect stillness, waiting for commands. Deploy the pathogen, Hyunwoo ordered. Dr. Sunhee ran forward, dodging between the dormant creatures. She placed the canister at the base of the Prime Mind and activated it. The pathogen released in a cloud of microscopic particles. The Prime Mind screamed, not with sound, but with a psychic wave that made everyone collapse in agony. The swarm creatures began to move, no longer dormant. Run, Hyunwoo shouted. They ran. Soldiers fell, torn apart by creatures. The survivors reached the ship just as Junho powered up the engines. The ramp closed with 2 soldiers still outside, their screams cut short. Junho launched the ship straight up, through the ceiling of the chamber, into open space. Behind them, the Prime Mind's scream grew louder and louder until suddenly it stopped. Every swarm creature in the system went still. Then they began to attack each other, mindless and confused. It worked, Dr. Sunhee gasped. The hive mind is broken. Junho guided the ship back toward the fleet, weaving through drifting swarm corpses. Of 12 ships that had entered the mission, only his returned. But the mission was complete. The swarm was destroyed. The council chamber had never been so quiet. Every representative sat frozen in their seats as Commander Jiwon walked through the doors. She wore a simple uniform, dark blue with silver trim, bearing no weapons. She didn't need any. Her presence alone commanded the room. Behind her walked Captain Hyunwoo and Lieutenant Minji, equally composed. They moved like soldiers, even in this political arena, alert and ready for anything. Chancellor Vrex rose from his elevated seat. His 4 eyes studied the humans with a mixture of curiosity and unease. They were smaller than most species in the chamber, yet somehow they seemed to fill the space with quiet menace. Commander Jiwon, Vrex began, his voice carefully neutral. On behalf of the Galactic Council, I welcome you and thank you for your assistance against the plague swarm. Your tactics have been remarkable. Save it, Jiwon said flatly. Her voice cut through the chamber's acoustics like a blade. We're not here for your thanks. Shocked murmurs rippled through the assembled representatives. No one spoke to the Chancellor that way. Jiwon walked to the center of the chamber, to the holographic display platform usually reserved for official presentations. Lieutenant Minji, if you please. Minji activated a data cylinder. The holographic display came to life, showing images from 800 years ago. Human ships and galactic vessels side by side. Human soldiers fighting alongside alien warriors. Mixed crews exploring new worlds together. For 300 years, humans and the Galactic Council were allies, Jiwan said. We fought your wars. We died in your conflicts. We helped you explore, expand, and thrive. We asked for nothing except friendship and fair treatment. The images changed. Now they showed council meetings, heated debates. Transcripts appeared in multiple languages, all saying the same thing. Humans were dangerous. Humans learned too fast. Humans were too violent, too unpredictable, too ambitious. You feared us, Jiwan continued. Not because we threatened you, but because we didn't need you. We could stand on our own. We were becoming equals, and that terrified you. Chancellor Vrex opened his mouth to speak, but Ambassador Doyen stood first. The ancient Telvan's voice was heavy with shame.
She speaks truth.
I was there. I voted against the exile, but I was outvoted. The council decided humanity was too dangerous to remain in galactic space. The exile was for protection, Vrex protested, both yours and ours. A cooling-off period. You destroyed our colonies. Hyunwoo's voice cracked like thunder. He stepped forward, and several guards reached for their weapons. You didn't exile us. You tried to exterminate us. 3 million humans died in the Outer Reaches massacre. 3 million civilians killed because you were afraid. The chamber erupted in chaos. Some representatives denied the claim. Others shouted for explanations. A few species representatives stood and walked out, unable to face the truth. Minji changed the display. Now it showed official documents sealed with the Council's own encryption. Orders to destroy human settlements. Reports of successful cleansing operations. Death tolls listed like inventory. We have copies of everything, Jiwan said coldly. Every order, every report, every lie you told yourselves to justify genocide. Lieutenant Minji has spent years recovering these files from abandoned archives. You didn't just try to exile us. You tried to erase us from history itself. An elderly figure moved slowly through the crowd. Colonel Tajin, escorted by 2 human Marines, climbed onto the chamber floor. He was ancient by human standards, nearly 200 years old, kept alive by medical technology. His face was scarred, his body twisted from old wounds. I am Colonel Tajin, he said in a voice that had once commanded armies. I fought in the Alliance Wars. I defended 6 galactic worlds from invasion. I received the Star of Valor from this very council. He touched his chest where faded medals hung, and I watched my family burn when the council fleet bombed our colony. Silence. Absolute crushing silence. I was 23 years old, Tajin continued. I survived because I was off-world fighting for you. When I returned, there was nothing left. Just ash and twisted metal. My wife, my son, my daughter gone, tears ran down the old soldier's face.
For 800 years I have lived with that pain.
Generations have been born and died, and still we remember. Still we carry the scars of your betrayal. Chancellor Vrex looked genuinely shaken. I did not know. These records were sealed long before my time. The official history says, The official history is a lie, G1 interrupted. And you're still lying even now. You want our help against the swarm. You need our weapons, our tactics, our willingness to do what you're too afraid to do. But you still don't see us as equals. You see us as tools. Useful monsters you can put away when the job is done. She walked up the steps toward the Chancellor's seat, and guards moved to intercept her. Hyunwoo's hand went to his sidearm. For a moment, violence hung in the air like a drawn breath. But Jiwon simply stopped and met Vrex's eyes. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to give us full access to your archives. Every file, every record, every piece of history you've hidden. You're going to publicly acknowledge what was done to humanity, and you're going to grant us full membership in this council, with equal voting rights and territory recognition. That's impossible, Vrex said. The other species would never. Then we leave, Jiwon said simply. Right now, we take our ships and our knowledge and we go back to our space. You can fight the swarm yourselves. You would condemn billions to death? A representative shouted. You already did that, Hyunwoo shot back. You condemned 3 million humans to death. At least the swarm doesn't pretend to be your friend first. A younger voice spoke up. Counselor Thane, a representative from a species that had only joined the council 2 centuries ago. I vote for the human terms. My people know nothing of this ancient betrayal, but I know justice when I hear it. These humans came to save us despite what we did to them. That deserves recognition, not debate. Other young counselors began to stand one by one, species that had joined the council after the exile. that had no part in the ancient crimes. They recognized the truth when they saw it. Ambassador Doyen's voice rang out. I change my vote. 800 years ago, I failed to stop an injustice. I will not fail again. The vote was called. It took 3 hours of debate, but finally the decision was made. Humanity would be granted full council membership. The historical records would be opened, and reparations would be discussed once the swarm threat was ended. Chancellor Vrex looked at Ji-won with something between respect and resignation. You have what you demanded. Now will you help us? Ji-won studied him for a long moment. We were always going to help you. Because unlike you, we don't abandon people just because they've wronged us. We're better than that. She turned to leave, then paused. But understand this, we're not your soldiers anymore. We're your partners. That means you listen to us. You trust us. And you never ever lie to us again, because next time we might not be so forgiving. As the humans left the chamber, Colonel Taejin remained behind. He looked at the assembled council, at the species that had destroyed his family and tried to destroy his people. My granddaughter commands a ship in the fleet, he said quietly. Her great-granddaughter is training to be a pilot. 8 generations have passed since you tried to kill us. But we survived. We thrived. And now we're here to save you. He smiled, and it was a terrible thing. I hope you learned something from that. The old soldier walked out, leaving the council to contemplate the weight of their history and the price of their redemption. The morning after completing the gauntlet, the human team woke to discover they were the most famous beings in the galaxy. News networks across thousands of worlds played recordings of their victory. Social media platforms crashed from too much traffic. Merchandisers were already selling items with the Blue Planet emblem. Children of dozens species pretended to be humans in their games. Hana arrived at the medical center early, hoping to speak with the team before the official victory ceremony. She found them already awake, reviewing messages on datapads while medical staff performed final checks. Ji-won's leg was wrapped in a sophisticated brace that would help it heal properly. You've become legends overnight, Hana said, smiling. How does it feel? Ji-won looked up from her reading. Overwhelming. And a little concerning. Legends are expected to be perfect. We're just people who work hard and refuse to give up. That's exactly why people are inspired, Hana replied. You showed that being average at many things beats being perfect at one thing. Every species in the galaxy has been told they need to specialize to succeed. You proved that wrong. Taemin entered carrying a thick folder of documents. He looked like he hadn't slept. I've been reading military reports all night. Analysts across the galaxy are rethinking basic strategy because of your performance. Some governments are worried. They're saying humans are unpredictable and potentially dangerous. Are we dangerous? Someone asked with a slight smile. Taemin considered the question seriously. Every capable species is potentially dangerous. The question is whether you use that capability for cooperation or conquest. Your history suggests you've learned from past mistakes, but not everyone will believe that. The door opened and a formal delegation entered. They wore the insignia of the Galactic Council, the governing body that maintained peace and order across civilized space. The leader was an ancient being whose species had mediated galactic affairs for thousands of years. Captain Ji-won, the delegate spoke through a translation device. The Galactic Council requests your presence at an emergency session this afternoon. We must discuss humanity's petition for membership in the galactic community. Ji-won stood, testing her injured leg. We'll be there. This is highly irregular, the delegate continued. Normally, new species spend decades being evaluated before membership is considered. But your performance has forced us to accelerate the process. The galaxy is watching. They want to know what humanity's return means for everyone. After the delegation left, Yuna helped Ji-won adjust her leg brace. Are you worried about the council meeting? She asked. No, Ji-won replied. We came here to prove ourselves. We've done that. Now we prove we can be partners, not threats. The victory ceremony took place in the Grand Amphitheater, a massive structure that could hold representatives from thousands of worlds. Every seat was filled. Millions more watched through broadcasts. The human team walked onto the central platform to thunderous applause mixed with uncertain silence. The game's commissioner presented the champion's apex, a crystal trophy that represented ultimate achievement. Ji-won accepted it on behalf of humanity. The applause grew louder, but Ji-won raised her hand asking for silence. I need to say something, she began. Her voice carried through the amphitheater's perfect acoustics. "Thank you for this honor. But we didn't come here just to win competitions or prove we're physically capable. We came to tell you a story about who we were, who we became, and who we want to be." The crowd quieted, listening intently. Hana found herself holding her breath. 2,000 years ago, humanity nearly destroyed itself, Jiwan continued. We created artificial intelligence without fully understanding it. That intelligence decided we were a threat and tried to eliminate us. We fought a terrible war. Billions died. Hundreds of colony worlds were lost. Our civilization collapsed. Murmurs rippled through the audience. This was new information, not included in the ancient corrupted records. "We won that war," Jiwan said, but the victory felt like defeat. We had proven ourselves capable of creating threats we couldn't control. We had demonstrated both brilliance and stupidity. So we made a choice. We withdrew from the galaxy. We hid in a remote sector of space and focused on rebuilding not just our technology, but ourselves. For 2,000 years, we watched you from the shadows. We saw the galactic community grow and prosper. We saw species cooperating, sharing knowledge, maintaining peace. And we realized something important. We had been alone before, and that isolation nearly destroyed us. We needed you as much as you might need us. Humanity's greatest strength has always been our diversity. Not just genetic diversity, but diversity of thought, culture, and approach. We are individuals who argue and disagree, yet we work together when it matters most. We are logical and emotional, peaceful and fierce, cautious and bold. These contradictions don't weaken us. They make us adaptable. Look at the galaxy today. Every species has specialized. You've become incredibly good at specific things. This is efficient and beautiful, but it's also fragile. Specialization creates vulnerability. If an unexpected threat appears, specialists struggle to adapt. We're not saying we're better. We're saying we're different, and that difference might be valuable. Humans are generalists in a galaxy of specialists. We offer partnership and adaptability. We'll work with any species on any world, facing any challenge. We don't seek dominance. We seek cooperation. Jiwan paused, looking around the vast amphitheater. The universe is enormous and full of unknowns. There will be threats none of us can face alone. But together, combining our strengths, we can endure anything. That's what we learned during our 2,000 years of rebuilding. Survival requires community. The silence that followed was absolute. Then slowly, applause began. It started with a few individuals and grew into a wave that shook the entire amphitheater. Not everyone applauded. Some species remained uncertain or skeptical, but enough believed that Jiwan's words carried weight. The Galactic Council session that afternoon was tense. Council members questioned humanity about their military capabilities, technology, and intentions. Jiwan answered every question honestly, even when honesty revealed potentially dangerous knowledge. Humans had learned to fight against artificial intelligence. They knew how to defeat machines that other species considered invincible. This knowledge could be used for protection or conquest. "Why should we trust you?" one council member asked bluntly. "Your history shows both compassion and destruction. How do we know which path you'll follow?" "You don't," Jiwan admitted. "Trust can't be demanded or assumed. It must be earned through actions over time. We're asking for the opportunity to prove ourselves. Judge us by what we do, not by what you fear we might do." The council deliberated for hours while the galaxy waited. Finally, they reconvened. The speaker addressed the assembly with formal gravity. "The Galactic Council has reached a decision. Humanity's petition for membership is accepted. Your homeworld Terra and all associated colonies will be recognized as sovereign territory. You will receive full diplomatic status, trade rights, and protection under mutual defense treaties." Relief flooded through the human team. But the speaker wasn't finished. "However, we impose conditions. Humanity must establish a permanent embassy on Viridian Prime. You must commit to transparency regarding military capabilities and technology. You must allow council observers to visit human worlds and verify compliance with galactic law. And you must prove through consistent actions that you seek cooperation, not domination. Trust must be earned," the speaker concluded, echoing Jiwan's own words. "We give you the opportunity. Don't waste it." Jiwan stood and bowed respectfully. "We accept all conditions. Transparency was always our intention. We have nothing to hide and everything to share." The decision was announced to the waiting galaxy. Reactions were mixed. Some species celebrated humanity's return. Others remained cautious. A few expressed open hostility, viewing humans as potential threats, but the decision was made. Humanity had returned to galactic civilization. In the following days, the human team became both celebrities and diplomats. Hana was offered a position as Earth's official historian, working directly with humans to document their hidden history. She accepted immediately, thrilled beyond words. Taman was recruited as a military liaison, helping bridge the gap between human tactics and galactic doctrine. He was both excited and nervous about working with a species that rewrote all the rules he knew. Minho received offers from military academies across the galaxy to teach unconventional strategy. He accepted a position at the prestigious Galactic Strategic Institute, promising to teach that adaptability beats specialization. Yuna began collaborating with medical specialists from hundreds of worlds, sharing human knowledge of biology and adaptive treatment. Her holistic approach to medicine, which emphasized versatility over specialization, revolutionized emergency medical practices. Doyen was flooded with engineering contracts. He chose to work with developing worlds, helping them build infrastructure using improvisation and limited resources. His ability to create solutions from nothing became legendary. Soman was challenged to exhibition matches by warriors from dozens of species. She accepted selectively, using each bout to demonstrate that technique and intelligence could overcome raw strength. 3 months after the death of the Prime Mind, Commander Jiwan stood on a balcony overlooking the restored gardens of Vex Prime. Below, human and alien children played together, their laughter carrying on the warm breeze. It was a sound she had never expected to hear. The war had ended, but the work of peace was harder. Clearing swarm-infested worlds took months. Rebuilding destroyed colonies would take years. And healing old wounds? That might take generations. Commander Jiwan? A voice said behind her. She turned to see Counselor Thane approaching. The young leader had become an ally during the rebuilding efforts, one of the few politicians Jiwan actually respected. Just Jiwan is fine, she said. The war's over. I'm technically retired now. Thane smiled. You'll never truly retire. The Council has voted to name you as the first human representative to the Permanent Security Committee. The vote was unanimous. Jiwan raised an eyebrow. Even Chancellor Vrex? Especially Vrex, he's learned something these past months. We all have. Thane looked out at the gardens. My species joined the Council 200 years ago. We were taught that the Council was perfect, that its decisions were always wise. Learning the truth about humanity's exile, it changed everything. Truth has that effect, Jiwan said. They stood in comfortable silence for a moment. Then Thane spoke again. There's a ceremony today. The Treaty of Remembrance is being officially signed. Ambassador Doyen specifically asked that you be there. The ceremony was held in the main council chamber, but it felt different now. Less formal, more genuine. Representatives from over 60 species gathered, including a large delegation of humans. Among them, Colonel Tajan sat in a place of honor, ancient but alert. Ambassador Doyen, looking every one of his 600 years, stood at the central podium. Today we sign not just a treaty but a promise, he said. A promise that we will never again let fear drive us to cruelty. That we will never again erase history to hide our mistakes. The Treaty of Remembrance was displayed for all to see. It did several things. It formally apologized for the exile and massacre of human colonies. It granted humanity full council membership with protected territory rights. It established the Archive of Truth, where all historical records would be preserved and accessible. And it created the Terran Academy, where both human and alien military forces would train together. Each representative came forward to sign. When it was Jiwan's turn, she noticed her hand trembling slightly. 800 years of exile, 3 million dead, generations of isolation, all acknowledged with a few words on a document. It seemed insufficient, but it was a start. After the ceremony, Jiwan found herself surrounded by well-wishers. Many wanted to thank her personally for saving their worlds. Others wanted to ask about human culture, technology, history. It was overwhelming. Ensign Junho rescued her, appearing at her elbow with a grin. Commander, you're needed in the hangar bay. Something about a ship dedication. She followed him gratefully. The hangar bay was packed with people. In the center sat a new ship, sleek and powerful, bearing both human and galactic design elements. A hybrid vessel, the first of its kind. Fleet Marshal Krennic stood beside it, looking pleased with himself. Commander Jiwan, on behalf of the Joint Fleet Command, I present the first vessel of the new Alliance fleet. We're calling her the Unity. Ji-won walked around the ship, admiring the craftsmanship. Human weapon systems integrated with galactic shielding. Human engines merged with galactic navigation. It was beautiful. She needs a captain, Krennic said. Someone who understands both our people. Someone who's earned the respect of two civilizations. He was looking at Captain Hyunwoo, who stood nearby, trying not to look too proud. Ji-won laughed. You'll do well, Captain. Just remember everything we've learned. I will, Hyunwoo promised. He hesitated, then added, We all will. This isn't just about one ship. There are 20 more under construction. Mixed crews, human and alien, working together. A real alliance. Dr. Sun-hee appeared, dragging Lieutenant Minji with her. The Archive of Truth is officially open, Sun-hee announced. Minji is being appointed as the head archivist. She'll make sure no more history gets buried. Minji looked embarrassed but determined. Someone has to make sure the youngsters learn what really happened. Both the good and the bad. They gathered around the Unity, this small group that had somehow changed the galaxy. Old soldiers and young pilots, scientists and warriors, humans and aliens who had learned to trust each other. What now? Unyo asked. He was famous now, the pilot who had saved civilization, but he still seemed like the same earnest young man who had volunteered for a suicide mission. Now we build something better, Ji-won said. The council wanted us gone because we scared them. They were right to be scared, but for the wrong reasons. They feared our strength. They should have feared our ideals. Because we believe in something they had forgotten. That you fight for people, not territory. That you protect the weak even when it costs you everything. That you don't abandon your principles just because things get hard. She looked at each of them in turn. We came back to save them. And maybe, just maybe, we saved ourselves too. We could have become bitter, isolated, consumed by revenge. Instead, we became better. We became who we always should have been. Colonel Taejin approached, moving slowly with the aid of a walking stick. He looked at the Unity with tears in his old eyes. I never thought I'd live to see this day, he said quietly. Humans and the council working together again. My family would have liked this. Ji-won took his hand gently. They'd be proud of you, Colonel. You survived. You kept our memory alive. You made sure we never forgot who we were. And now? The old soldier asked. Now you rest, Ji-won said. Your fight is over. Let the next generation carry on. That evening, Ji-won returned to the balcony overlooking the gardens. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of purple and gold. Below, more children had gathered, playing games that mixed human and alien traditions. She thought about the journey humanity had taken. Exiled, nearly destroyed, forced to survive in isolation. But they had survived. More than that, they had thrived. They had built a civilization in the darkness and refused to let hatred define them. The Galactic Council had tried to erase humans from history. They had feared what humanity represented. And in a way, they had been right to fear. Not because humans were monsters, but because humans were a mirror, showing the Council what they had lost. Courage, compassion, and the willingness to fight for what was right, regardless of the cost. Quite a view, a voice said. Ambassador Doyen joined her at the railing, moving carefully on his aged legs. I've stood on this balcony for 6 centuries, he said. I've seen empires rise and fall. I've watched species come and go. But I've never seen anything quite like this. What do you mean? Ji-won asked. Hope, Doyen said simply. Real, genuine hope. Not the false optimism politicians sell, but the kind born from sacrifice and hard choices. You humans brought that back to us. We just did what needed doing, Ji-won said. Exactly, Doyen smiled. That's what makes it special. You didn't do it for glory or power. You did it because it was right. The council had forgotten what that meant. He placed a weathered hand on her shoulder. When I was young, I watched my people vote to exile humanity. I've carried that shame my entire life. But now, at the end, I get to see it made right. Thank you for that. The work isn't finished, Ji-won warned. Trust takes time to rebuild. There will be setbacks. Of course, Doyen agreed. But now we have something we didn't have before, a chance. That's all anyone can ask for. He left her alone with her thoughts. Ji-won looked up at the stars, at the vast expanse where somewhere human colonies thrived alongside alien worlds. Where mixed crews explored unknown regions, where children of different species learned together. They had been ancient lore, forgotten myths, cautionary tales told to frighten children. Then they had come to war. and they had reminded the galaxy what humanity truly meant. Not monsters to be feared, but allies to be trusted. Not weapons to be used, but friends to be valued. The legends were real, and they were here to stay. In the gardens below, a human child taught an alien child how to throw a ball. They laughed together, oblivious to the weight of history, free to simply be children in a universe that was finally learning to be better. And watching them, Juan allowed herself to smile. The fight had been worth it. Every sacrifice, every loss, every painful moment of doubt. Because here now, in this moment of peace, the future looked bright. Humans were no longer lore. They were family. And that made all the difference. Captain Hyunwoo's scout ship dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the Corvin system. What he saw made his blood run cold. The planet below had been green once. The old survey data showed forests, oceans, and cities that housed 20 million people. Now the world was gray and brown, covered in a writhing mass that looked like living cancer. The plague swarm had turned an entire planet into a feeding ground. Sensors detect minimal life signs, Ensign Junho reported from the pilot seat. His hands trembled slightly on the controls. He was 23 years old and had never seen death on this scale. How many survivors? Hyunwoo asked. Maybe 2,000. They're holed up in an underground facility near the northern pole. Hyunwoo studied the tactical display. The swarm covered everything. Billions of individual creatures, each the size of a large dog with razor-sharp limbs and acid-dripping mandibles. They moved in perfect coordination, guided by a hive intelligence that treated each creature as expendable. We can't save them, Junho said quietly. The moment we land, the swarm will overwhelm us. Then we don't land, Hyunwoo replied. He opened a channel to his other 2 scout ships. Execute pattern Omega-7. We're going hunting. The 3 human ships dove into the atmosphere in a tight formation. Immediately, millions of swarm creatures looked up. Those that had wing forms launched themselves skyward in a living cloud of death. The human ships opened fire, not at the swarm creatures trying to intercept them, but at the ground itself. Plasma cannons superheated the surface, creating a wall of fire that raced across the landscape. The swarm creatures in the firestorm died by the thousands, but the swarm didn't retreat. It never retreated. More creatures poured forward, climbing over the burning corpses of their fellows, driven by the hive mind's single purpose: consume everything. They're not afraid, Junho breathed. They've never met a predator before, Hyunwoo said. They've only fought prey. Time to teach them the difference. The human ships split up, each one drawing a portion of the swarm away from the survivor camp. They flew low and fast, weapons hammering the ground in precise patterns. To the swarm it looked like random attacks, but Hyunwoo was cutting a path, clearing a corridor of burned earth between the shelter and the nearest high ground. Junho, take us down to the shelter entrance. 10 seconds, no more. The young pilot's eyes went wide, but he didn't argue. The ship screamed down in a nearly vertical drop, landing jets firing at the last possible moment. The landing gear had barely touched ground when the rear ramp dropped. Now, Hyunwoo shouted into his communicator. The shelter doors burst open. 2,000 refugees ran for their lives. They were different species, different sizes, but all shared the same expression of terror and hope. Human soldiers in powered armor stood at the ramp, grabbing civilians and throwing them bodily into the ship's cargo bay. The swarm noticed. Thousands of creatures changed direction, racing toward the ship. They would reach it in seconds. Hyunwoo grabbed a rifle and ran to the ramp. Junho, the moment the last civilian is aboard, you take off. Don't wait for me. Sir, that's an order. Hyunwoo opened fire. The rifle was old technology by human standards, but it would be miraculous to the galactic species. Each shot released a spike of depleted uranium moving at hypersonic speed. Every trigger pull killed a swarm creature. Hyunwoo fired 40 times in 5 seconds, creating a wall of alien corpses. But still they came. A soldier beside him went down, a swarm creature tearing through his armor. Hyunwoo grabbed the creature with his bare hand and crushed its head, then pulled the wounded soldier backward. Last one aboard, someone shouted. Hyunwoo ran for the ramp as the ship's engines roared. He felt the deck tilting under his feet as Junho began takeoff. A swarm creature landed on his back, mandibles screeching as they tried to pierce his armor. He rolled, crushed it against the deck, and scrambled the last few meters. The ramp closed just as the ship lifted off. Through the rear cameras, Hyunwoo watched thousands of swarm creatures pile onto the spot where they had been seconds before. In the cargo bay, 2,000 refugees huddled together, many of them crying. They stared at the human soldiers with expressions of awe and confusion. These weren't the massive, heavily armed galactic marines they knew. These were smaller beings, compact and efficient, who moved with deadly grace. An elderly Telvan female approached Hyunwoo. Her scales were cracked with age, her eyes clouded. "Who are you?" she asked in broken galactic common. "We're humans," Hyunwoo said. He removed his helmet, revealing his face. "We heard your distress call." The old female's eyes went wide. "Humans, but you're myths. Stories we tell children, not myths," Hyunwoo said gently. "We're very real, and we're here to help." Word of the rescue spread across galactic space at the speed of light communication. 3 human ships had extracted 2,000 civilians from a swarm-infested world, a feat the galactic military had declared impossible. In the council chambers, chaos erupted again. But this time it was different. This time there was hope mixed with the fear. Chancellor Vrek stared at the video footage captured by orbital satellites. Small ships moving with impossible precision, performing maneuvers that should have torn them apart. Warriors who fought with efficiency the galaxy had not seen in living memory. "Find them," he ordered. "Find these humans and bring them here immediately." "They haven't responded to our hails," Fleet Marshal Krennic reported. "They're hitting swarm positions in 3 systems, but they refuse to make contact." Ambassador Doyen stood slowly. "They will not come because you order it, Chancellor. They will come when they are ready, if they come at all." "Why wouldn't they?" Vrex began, then stopped. Understanding dawned on his face. "The exile. They remember." "Of course they remember," Doyen said quietly. "The question is, do we?" Across 3 star systems, human ships struck at the swarm with surgical precision. They used tactics no galactic military had ever considered. They targeted the swarm's supply nodes, cutting off its ability to feed. They used fire and chemical weapons the Council had banned centuries ago. They fought dirty, fought mean, and they fought to win. And slowly, system by system, they pushed the swarm back. On the flagship, Commander Jiwon reviewed the tactical reports. Her fleet had been fighting non-stop for 2 weeks. They had saved 15 colonies, destroyed 20 swarm hive ships, and lost only 3 people. "The Council is demanding we present ourselves," Minji reported. "Let them demand," Jiwon said. "We'll talk when we're ready. Right now there are people dying, and we're the only ones who seem capable of stopping it." Captain Hyunwoo entered the bridge, still wearing his combat armor. Another world secured. The locals are calling Junho the Silver Eagle. Apparently his flying has become legendary. Jiwon smiled slightly. "Good. Let the legends grow. The Council wanted us forgotten. Now they're going to remember why they were afraid." She looked at the star map, at the red zones showing swarm infestation. So much death, so much destruction, and somewhere behind it all, a galactic council that had tried to erase humanity from history. "Prepare a message," she said. "Tell the Council we'll meet with them, but on our terms, in our time. And tell them to have their historians ready." "Ready for what?" Hyunwoo asked. "To learn the truth they tried to bury."